Welcome back to 101 East, where we're discussing the security situation in Indonesia with Nur Huda Ismail from Jakarta's International Institute for Peacebuilding, Debbie Afianti, who's with the Center for Political Violence and International Studies, and via satellite from Jakarta, presidential spokesman Dino Pati Jalal. Thank you again for staying with us. Dino Jalal, let me come back to you with, if I may, the same question I asked you in the first half, and that is, what is the government going to do about it this time that's going to make a difference?
Well, certainly law enforcement. The key to fighting terrorism in Indonesia has always been effective intelligence and effective coordination, international cooperation, and strong law enforcement.
Well, let me just stop you. Let me stop you there, Dino Jalal, because that's really the key point, and I'll put that to you. Has there been effective intelligence and effective law enforcement coordination in Indonesia since the last bomb attack?
I think what happened at the moment, the Indonesian authorities managed to arrest most of the leaders, but they forgot to understand the vibrant dynamic within the group itself. You know, you see the splinters here, like the big leaders, this guy, this guy, this guy. Then they managed to identify all of them, and then the government the Indonesian government has been extremely good to make them cooperative and talking openly about the organization, the structure, and so that they have a better understanding which kind of group they're dealing with. However, they forgot the mobilization of the new recruit, which is very hard to detect.
And Debbie, you said before the break that the fractured nature of the environment now makes it much harder to keep tabs on. Do you think the government has done enough to make sure that it is on top of the situation?
I think in the past few years, government still focus on law enforcement by arresting or capturing the leaders and members of JI, but not focusing on how to anticipate or prevent actions for public to be exposed to radical ideas, or maybe to be new recruits of those groups. So the problem right now is how to empower civil society, because the government cannot do by itself to do some preventive actions. So I think we have moderate Muslims in Indonesia that are affiliated with so many organizations, and I think by making the awareness campaign to the public, it is better. Okay.
Dino Jalal, is the government considering these views?
Let me respond to that. You know, there's been years of us talking about promoting moderate Islam and moderation and tolerance, and that has been done quite a lot by the government and by civil society, by religious leaders. But unfortunately, in a country like Indonesia of 240 million people and 3 time zones, there's always small pockets, you know, a dozen people who are vulnerable to these radical messages. And the challenge is how do you, you know, fight and repel these small individual groups who work in small pockets and underground.
So Debbie,
and sometimes, no matter how loud the moderates speak, it doesn't make a dent to the workings of these small groups, and that is the work of the intelligence and the counterterrorism policy.
Debbie, how would you respond?
But if we see how easily the radical groups convey their messages through their websites, it means that the public are exposed to their ideas, and also the picture of government, and also the naming of government as un-Islamic regime. It's a like of penetrating the ideas of the public, especially the youth, that the government is un-Islamic, so they should do some challenge to the incumbent regime.
Let's talk about the message for just a minute. Now, if I can hark back to your past as a member of and an alumnus of one of the more famous madrasas in Indonesia. Do you think that the message that they preach in the more radical schools is still being preached as strongly? Are those concerns about the attempted overtaking of Muslim culture by the West, are they as strong as they were?
I think one we have to understand, you know, preach, and there are steps there are routes of individuals from exposing to radical to actually commit into violence. Exposing to violent ideology is one thing, but one thing that trigger them is in fact a peer group, small number of individuals and charismatic leader who actually take them into these deadly squad like Nordin top groups. That is the challenge. I think Dino make a very good point here that we have been a lot of talk about empowering moderate, but we have been barking to the wrong trees. Why? Because look, these jihadists won't listen to leader of Muhammadiyah leaders or NU. Very simple reason. Why the hell I should listen to you? You never committed to any jihad. You're sitting in very comfortable IRCON offices talking about jihad. Well, us as a JE members, we will fight. We fought in the conflict zone defending Muslim brothers. Why should I listen to you? So that's why in my articles, in my report, I always suggest we need to have a systematic program to empower the repentant militant within the inner circle of the members. The repentant militant, so that they look up. Someone is look up. Imagine, someone told me to do jihad, to stop jihad violence, to stop.
Well, I mean, this idea of the repentant militant is an interesting one, because Dino Jalal, the Indonesian prisons have seen their fair share of people passing through who have been attempted at turning, if I put it that way. I mean, rehabilitation has been part of the policy, but it doesn't seem to be working, does it? Are you thinking of trying to target the repentant militant and changing or improving that policy?
Well, it is working partially. I mean, it's not. I mean, things like this could always work better. But through our program of de-radicalization, which has been undergone for several years now, we have turned a lot of militants into cooperative people who, in turn, provide us with very useful intelligence. And some of these intelligence have led to some arrests and some raids and preventive raids. So it has worked to some extent. But again, unfortunately, in this case, in what happened in Jakarta recently, you win some, you lose some. That is the reality of this counterterrorism efforts. And you asked me if there's a guarantee if it will never happen again. Of course not. There's no way in the world that you can guarantee that there's no more going to be any terrorist attacks.
Right.
But I think one point needs to be made clear. Can I just make this one point? I mean, despite this horrible bombing, it doesn't change the fact that Indonesia is a peaceful and stable democracy. We just held the most complex and extensive elections anywhere in the world, where 130 million people exercised their voting rights in a peaceful and democratic and orderly way, with almost no violence that took place.
All right.
And religious extremism did not come into play into the election campaign.
Certainly,
so,
but even
I think that point cannot be lost. Yeah.
Even President SBY immediately after the bombing turned around and said they were targeting me specifically and they were targeting this election specifically. So do you agree that the thing that we should focus on is the democracy, or do you think that the future is going to bring more of this kind of violence?
This country is going to be a consolidated democracy if it meets some prerequisites. For example, it channels all aspirations of all groups in Indonesia, and it opens any political aspirations to be open up in the public discussion, even like the discussion of jihad. What is jihad? And let the public to discuss it openly, not just in a monolithic way, not just one source from the ulamas or others.
Are you seeing evidence that things are being done to your satisfaction?
Not yet.
Not yet. How about you? Are you thinking that the work that the government has done so far has been adequate, or do you think that we're going to see more of this trouble until?
I think in certain point, at a certain point, the government has been trying to reach all these jihadists with a lot of effort, but that's not enough. I just want to add what she has been saying, that we need to empower more civil society. It is the police job to actually arrest them. But I don't think that's why the institute that at the moment is trying to reintegrate those individuals to go back to normal life, and this is important. And second thing, I think the government need to have bold action to rehabilitate some of them. Why? Because what happened in the terrorism's world at the moment, someone who actually did it, it's fine. We can arrest them and then lock them in the jail. But in many cases, individuals who just had a very periphery rules, even sometimes they don't know anything about the terrorism activity, being arrested and understanding what is real jihad, what is real movement inside the prisons.
And Dino Jalal, very quickly for the final question, let me just change the subject entirely. Is international cooperation enough? Nordin Top is known to be in and out of Malaysia. Have you had enough cooperation from Malaysia and other countries?
Well, as we're speaking now, some Malaysian officials are in Indonesia also helping us with some intelligence work and law enforcement work. There has been long-standing cooperation between Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. But of course, we're dealing with a very, difficult operation. Indonesia's territory is so large that you can enter it from anywhere. So it's like trying to find a needle in a sack of, So it's a very difficult operation. But we've had some successes, and the thing is to be persistent in our efforts to not lose hope and to bounce back even stronger. Yeah.
And there we will have to leave it. Thank you all very much indeed for talking to us today. My thanks to all my guests, and from all of us here at 101 East, until next time, it's bye-bye.